The sun was beating down from above so intensely that even the breath became hot. Nora had long wanted to hide in the shade, but she couldn't afford to show weakness in front of her friend. Rolling over to her other side, she asked hopefully, "Aurora, maybe it's time to stop sunbathing? We're almost like steaks on a grill." Aurora Blanco didn't even flinch. Apparently, she enjoyed the slow roasting process. She energetically said, "Nora, stop complaining. Go take a dip if you're too hot. Also, check on our champagne while you're at it." Nora lazily got up. "You're right, I need to cool off. But I have doubts about the champagne. I wonder what they are." Aurora moved her body into an incredibly complex position, which shocked her friend. Nora misjudged the strength of her voice and shouted, "Aurora, how did you manage that? You can only see something like that at the circus. Why did you bend like that? You could accidentally hurt yourself." Buchanan didn't expect such a strong reaction from her friend and flinched. Her body instantly returned to a normal anatomical position. "Nora, why are you yelling like that? Do you want all the villagers to come running because of your screams? If you don't understand why I'm twisting like this, I'll explain. I'm doing it to get an even tan. Do you know how they identify villagers in the city?" Nora guessed randomly. "By their clothes." "You guessed wrong. By their distinctive tan. Villagers usually sunbathe while tending to their garden beds, so they only tan on their backs and arms, well, and their legs a little bit." Nora shrugged in confusion. "Sure, that's an interesting observation, but what good is an even tan for us? We're going to the city to work, not to show off our beauty." Aurora sat down and adjusted her towel underneath her. "Have you ever thought that in the city, we'll meet guys who will invite us to the beach? And when we take off our robes, they'll be shocked by what they see. You know, walking around public places with such a tan is like having a tattoo on your forehead that says, 'I'm from the village.'" Nora tried to object. "What's wrong with us being born here?" Aurora smirked. "Just remember the famous saying, 'It's good to be useful where you were born.' It's all nonsense, that doesn't affect me anymore." Having expressed her opinion, Aurora shifted her attention to her considerably reddened sides. "It seems like it was a bit too much. So, it's time to have some beverage after sunburning." Nora looked at her friend, who continued to stand beside her, and then said in a commanding tone, "Nora, why are you frozen? Fetch the champagne. It's the best remedy for sunburn." Her friend's face took on a pained expression. "Aurora, maybe we shouldn't? It's too hot. It might just make things worse." Aurora gave her a look that silenced her immediately. Soon, the sound of splashing water was heard, and then Nora Castro said with contentment, "Aurora, come take a dip. The water feels so nice." The sunbathing enthusiast grumbled under her breath, "The last thing I need is to catch some disease in this ditch. There are leeches and other nasty things crawling around." Nora repeated her plea, and this time Aurora responded with amusement. "Let's refresh ourselves with champagne first, and then maybe I'll follow your lead." Nora returned with a fogged-up bottle. "It's cold." "Open it, I don't know how." "Well, I never doubted your limited abilities. That's precisely why, my friend, I'm trying to change your dull existence. City life, compared to rural life, is like outer space. It's the only place where you can feel like a real person." Aurora skillfully managed to open the stubborn bottle, and Nora once again gazed at her with admiration. "How do you do it so effortlessly?" Aurora poured the bubbling drink into disposable cups. "I used to work in a bar for a while, and that's where I learned this skill. To be honest, life in the city isn't a piece of cake either. It doesn't welcome all newcomers. Believe me, in these 3 years since high school, it has left me pretty drained." Nora, with her usual enthusiasm, said, "Aurora, I believe you. You're my best friend, after all." Aurora stretched her arm, holding the cup. "Then let's drink to our strong friendship. Cheers." Nora reciprocated. Cheers. Thirst was so intense that the girls emptied their cups in one gulp. Aurora reached for the bottle again, but Nora stopped her. Listen, don't overdo it. My head has already started spinning. It'll pass soon. The champagne effect is short-lived. Nora looked at her friend with respect. You speak as if you drink this noble drink every day. Aurora remained silent for a moment, then slowly said, Well, my friend, not only did I drink champagne daily, but I even took baths in it once. Really? Yep. You know I never lie. The two girls fell silent for a few minutes, each lost in her thoughts. Nora, in particular, didn't want to interrupt the pleasant daydreams. She was already picturing herself in a jacuzzi with champagne bubbling instead of water. And this idealistic scene was taking place in a luxurious city apartment. Aurora interrupted Nora's sweet reverie. Nora, you asked me yesterday why I didn't pursue further education after high school. Yes, I did ask you about it yesterday, and you answered vaguely. Tell me honestly, what's the use of all that education? Nora yawned. Champagne's making me a bit drowsy. As for the usefulness of education, I can tell you this nowadays, you can't get anywhere without a diploma. I'm not the heiress of a wealthy man or even a governor. Your mom can't seem to settle down either, always trying to hold onto her youth. My dad, on the other hand, drinks heavily. But I still went to college and gained some kind of profession. By the way, Marina Santos also studied to be a chef, and she doesn't have anyone except her old granny. Aurora burst into laughter. She's not a model to follow. She's an incomparable village fool. And where does she work with her diploma? On the farm, and for Pablo. During planting and harvesting, our farmer opens a canteen to feed the labor force and hires women for seasonal work. What a joy it is to work temporarily for pennies. And I heard from a cashier that Pablo is on the verge of bankruptcy. You see, even businessmen from the rural community turn out to be no good. So, Nora, you have nothing to gain here at all. Unless you want to paint roadside poles or bus stops with your painter's diploma. Nora grumbled. Perhaps you're right. But I'm afraid of something. Aurora slapped her friend on the reddened back. A person who doesn't take risks also doesn't drink champagne. She poured the drink into the cups and prepared to take a sip, but something caught her attention. She pushed Nora with all her might, causing her to drop her cup. Aurora, be more careful. But her friend didn't let her speak again. Nora, look, from the village side, an unknown object is approaching us. I wonder who's about to disturb our peace. Nora also stared at the point where Aurora was looking. It took her a couple of seconds to recognize who had dared to interrupt their solitude. Well, it's our village fool. We brought this trouble upon ourselves. She's going to start telling us about her grandmother. Seeing her former classmates, Marina quickened her pace. Even from a distance, she waved to the girls with a friendly gesture. Hello, girls. Is the water good to swim in? Nora replied optimistically. It's like warm milk. Are you going for a swim? Marina approached their spot and gazed admiringly at Aurora. Aurora, I didn't even recognize you. Aurora grinned. That's good, it means I'll be rich. And you, Marina, haven't changed a bit. Where are you heading? I'm going to pick some sorrel, my grandmother asked for it. She loves sorrel soup. Aurora said with undisguised mockery. It's a good dish and healthy. We won't keep you, go fulfill your grandmother's will. Okay. Well, I'm off then. Go, Marina. Good luck. They watched in silence as Marina walked farther away from their resting place. When she was at a considerable distance, Aurora exclaimed with frustration. She's such a primitive person, it's almost depressing. And yet, someone seems to like her simplicity. Nora poured the remaining champagne. Are you talking about Rodrigo? Well, he's not of this world at all. He's chasing after that eccentric girl. Imagine that he even gives her flowers. He's taken all the flowers from the beds around the local council. Nora knew very well that, back in school, Aurora had a crush on Rodrigo Mora. However, the son of the local constable paid her no attention and openly courted Marina. What I'm curious about is how long this amorous affair will continue. Aurora, who had been feeling down, suddenly perked up. Doesn't Marina reciprocate his feelings? He's such a desirable suitor. Nora made a funny grimace. She doesn't let Rodrigo get closer to her than the length of an outstretched arm. The lady who sells goods to the women in the store said that Marina put a love spell on her boyfriend. He doesn't want to look at other girls, so the caring grandmother is actively searching for an antidote to the spell. Sometimes interesting things happen here. Aurora shrugged as if trying to shake off an invisible burden. You tell the story so entertainingly, as if I came here as a guest. Listen, my friend, I've had a brilliant idea. What do you think about taking Marina with us? The girl here is getting completely bored. And I doubt she earns much in the field canteen. In the city, there are so many prospects for someone with a profession like a chef. Aurora spoke with unusual enthusiasm, so Nora looked at her friend with surprise. Why do we need her? Just for fun. And also, in a small group, there should always be someone responsible for everyone else's comfort. I think Marina is the perfect fit for the role of a caring friend. She's one of those who willingly takes on such responsibilities. Nora pondered for a moment and then, with a sigh, said, No, that's a dead-end idea. Marina won't abandon her grandmother. Aurora extended her hand. Want to bet that I can persuade her? And I'll come up with such a story for her grandmother that she'll gladly let her granddaughter go to the city herself. Nora looked at her friend's hand and hesitantly extended her own. It's a hopeless idea. Time will tell. What do we bet? Nora mumbled uncertainly. Let's bet a bottle of brandy. Aurora snorted. I suggest we bet on a case of champagne. Nora was confident that Marina wouldn't budge. She firmly shook Aurora's hand. It's a deal. They switched to more pleasant topics. The champagne, warmed by the sun, affected them quickly, and they started singing. Lost in their singing, the girls didn't notice Marina walking by. Initially, Marina wanted to approach her former classmates. She was eager to ask Aurora about life in the city, but upon seeing the state they were in, she changed her mind and hurried back to the village. Despite the scorching heat and the champagne they had consumed, the school friends didn't forget their wager. The next morning, Aurora visited Nora. So, how are you feeling? Haven't you cooled off from yesterday? Nora didn't immediately grasp what Aurora was hinting at. There were so many different events yesterday. For example, Fernandez's pig gave birth. And at Torres's place, some unknown villain stole a plow right from the yard. Aurora pursed her already thin lips. Nora, don't pretend you don't understand anything. I'm asking you directly about our bet. Remember, we made a bet by the river? I'm interested in one question. Do you still want to stage a spectacular performance, or are you going to back down? What? The Castros never back down, and neither will I. Nora proclaimed this slogan quite energetically, although the spark in her eyes from the day before was gone. She looked at her friend pleadingly. Aurora, maybe we should forget about this bet. Just imagine having to tolerate Marina for several months. She's like a stretched-out rubber band, boring and monotonous. But she's efficient, she'll do everything for us. And it's worth enduring her company for that. If you don't want to continue this sociological experiment, we can cancel the bet by mutual agreement. But you understand that you'll be considered the loser. That means you'll owe me a case of champagne. Nora remarked emotionally. Aurora, did you come up with those rules yourself? Tell me, do you have the same attitude towards me as you do towards Marina? Are you also using me as a guinea pig? Aurora widened her eyes. How could you even think that? You're my closest friend, and Marina. Well, you know everything yourself. Let's not beat around the bush, let's go talk to Marina right now. Fine, let's go. Aurora was the first to rush outside, and Nora reluctantly followed. The village covered an area equivalent to a small town, but the inconvenience lay in its elongated shape along the river, stretching for several kilometers. The hilly terrain added to the challenge, making a journey from one end of the village to the other quite time-consuming. The watery barrier also factored into the logistics. Therefore, the villagers had long used various modes of transportation, including boats and even makeshift rafts, to simply go to the store or visit family. Few dared to use the bridge, which, due to its decrepitude, was not trustworthy. Since the matter at hand required a quick solution, the girls dared to cross the river via an emergency bridge, and within a quarter of an hour, they reached their destination. Lita Santos, Marina's grandmother, was bustling in the yard when the unexpected guests arrived. "Good health to you, Lita." The elderly woman straightened her back. "And to you, girls, may you know no troubles. Are you here for Marina?" Aurora took on the role of negotiator. She winked at Nora and shouted, "We're here for Marina. There's something very important to discuss. Can you please call her?" Lita approached the gate and pushed aside the heavy iron bolt. "Go on inside the house, that's where you can talk. Marina is busy with cleaning right now. And no need to shout, I hear perfectly well." The hostess's comment didn't faze Aurora in the slightest. The girls thanked her for the warm welcome and followed her into the house. Marina was genuinely pleased to see the guests. "Oh, girls, be careful as you come in, it's chaos here. I had no idea that guests would arrive at such an early hour with Grandma. You must be here for something important." Although Marina Santos couldn't be called a beauty, her cornflower blue eyes possessed incredible strength. When she looked at her friends, they involuntarily shrank under her gaze. Hence, they didn't respond immediately to her question. This time, Nora initiated the dialogue. "Yes, Marina, we have an important deal for you, maybe even two. We wanted to propose that you join us for a temporary job." Nora briefly summarized the situation. Of course, she embellished it a bit for added flair, but even this trick didn't persuade Marina. She immersed herself in thought, and the classmates didn't attempt to rush her thought process, fearing to scare away their quarry. Of course, Marina had no idea about the role that her former classmates assigned to her. She had longed to try her luck in the city, and she couldn't burden her grandmother with running the household alone. So, after a long pause, Marina calmly replied, "Girls, thank you for the invitation, but I can't leave right now. Maybe in the winter, when there's less work to do at home. But not now." The guests didn't expect a rejection so quickly and were ready to say goodbye when Lita unexpectedly intervened. She had been in the adjacent room and overheard the entire conversation. The woman addressed her granddaughter. "Marina, don't be too quick to refuse, think it over carefully. I believe you should take your friend's offer. Consider this, in the village, it's difficult to find a job. Pablo's business isn't doing well either, it might go under any day now. What will you do then? Spend another winter morning while eating nothing but potatoes?" Marina blushed on her cheeks. "Well, I'm aware of Pablo's situation. Everyone in the village is talking about the imminent bankruptcy of his company. But nothing will change before the autumn, that's for sure. Grandma, I can't leave you in the middle of the busy season. Besides, who will deliver hot lunches to the workers in the fields?" Lita waved her hands. "Do you think you're the only one? Is there no one else in the village to feed the men? Yes, even I can do it. Don't write me off as an old woman just yet, I'm only 65. And in our time, that's not old for a woman." The visitors were delighted with the unexpected support and joined forces to persuade Marina. "Marina, with your culinary skills, you can easily find work in the city, even in a cafe or a decent restaurant. You'll always have enough to eat, and you'll earn money too." Lita dreamily added, "We could buy a new TV set, the old one only turns on every other time." That was the most convincing argument, and Marina agreed. Aurora immediately made a call to someone and announced that she would be bringing 2 school friends with her. She proudly told her invisible interlocutor, "Alejandro, you said you needed a good chef, right? Well, I found a fantastic expert in borscht and cutlets. This young lady has no bad habits and isn't married." Aurora hung up the phone and cheerfully declared, "Girls, we have 2 days to prepare, and then we're off. Alejandro promised to book us a good room at the hostel." Lita asked as she wanted to clarify, "What is it, exactly?" Aurora replied with a smirk, "Well, in this village, we don't have many options. A hostel is something in between a dormitory and a hotel. The conditions there are even better than in some of our houses." 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lita tried to mentally prepare herself for a long separation from her granddaughter. But she had no idea how difficult it would be to let go of someone she had raised from infancy. No one accompanied Marina's friends as they left, and the elderly woman kissed them all goodbye, wished them luck, and even sent them off with some parting words. At their train station, the train stopped for just 2 minutes, so the conductor urged the girls, "Come on, girls, hop on the train, or you'll be left behind." With laughter and jokes, the girls managed to get their suitcases and bags into the compartment. Marina's eyes sparkled with uninvited tears, and she blew her grandmother air kisses even as the train slowly pulled away. But with each passing second, the train quickly gained speed, and Marina was already shouting at the top of her lungs, "My dear grandma, my beauty. I love you more than anyone in the world. Don't miss me, I'll be back very soon." Lita was standing on the platform for a long time, gazing at the spot where the express train had just made a 1-minute stop, and now it was disappearing from sight. 2 hot tears streamed down her cheeks, but she didn't notice the tears. She quietly whispered, "God, protect my granddaughter from harm and trouble." Buses to the village did not run in the evening, so Lita decided to walk home. But she had barely left the station when she heard a familiar voice from behind. "Lita, stop." She stopped but didn't turn around, as she immediately recognized the annoying voice. Olivia Fuentes was breathing heavily, but that didn't stop her from talking on the move. "Well, you're really something. You went into high gear like an athlete, and I couldn't catch up with you." Lita couldn't stand Olivia, who was considered the village troublemaker. She responded quite coldly, "And what made you run after me? I haven't borrowed money from you, and you don't owe me anything." Olivia didn't drop her unfriendly tone. Gesticulating actively with her hands, she sneered, "What, my friend? Is history repeating itself? What are you talking about?" Olivia began her speech. "About your granddaughter Marina. Did she also go to the city in search of happiness, just like her mother did back in the day? Watch out, Lita, she might bring you a grandchild just like her mother did." Olivia twisted her face as if some demonic force was tearing her from the inside. "Why did you let the girl go with Aurora? Don't you know the kind of scandals Aurora has caused in the city? Women say she worked in a club and danced in front of men." "Oh, Lord, forgive me." Olivia spat vividly and was about to say something else, but Lita interrupted her bluntly. "Did you see her dancing yourself?" Olivia shook her head negatively. Lita continued to press on. "If you didn't see it, why gossip unnecessarily?" Marina's grandmother moved on, but Olivia didn't give up. "Am I telling lies? Your Berta, for example, didn't have a child with her lawful husband, did she? No. She had a child out of wedlock in the city. They say bad traits are inherited. Your granddaughter might do the same." Lita turned. "Get out of here, old crow. Why are you bad-mouthing a child? You'd better keep an eye on your own grandson. He's more likely to give you illegitimate grandchildren because he's messing around with anyone." In a fit of hysteria, Olivia shook her raised hands. "It's all nonsense. Our Rodrigo is smart and decent. He graduated from college, unlike your undereducated granddaughter. It's just jealousy that he doesn't pay any attention to your Marina." This crossed all boundaries, and Lita switched to a language Olivia could understand. Yes, your Rodrigo is heartbroken because my granddaughter pays him no attention whatsoever. Olivia didn't expect this turn of events. She wanted to say something cutting, but her breath was caught in her throat due to nervous shock. She began to gasp for air with her mouth wide open, and Lita was genuinely concerned for her life. Olivia, are you okay? Should I call a nurse from the health center? Olivia finally recovered from the shock, her eyes still wide open, resembling a fish washed up on the shore. In a hoarse voice, she uttered, "Just go away, both you and your granddaughter, along with the nurse." The elderly troublemaker decided to add some spice, so she spat forcefully on the road and walked past Lita. However, it seemed that wounded pride wouldn't let her rest, and from a distance, she shouted, "If there's any justice in this world, God will sort everything out, and then we'll see." Olivia didn't specify what she wanted to see in the future, but Lita couldn't shake off the unpleasant feeling she left behind. Lita, by her nature, was a reserved person. She never complained about her hardships and sorrows, which could have filled several lifetimes. Orphaned at a young age, she single-handedly raised her two younger brothers. In her early years, Lita took on any job she could find and earned the respect of her native village through hard work. For many years, she led a team of field workers, and later she was transferred to the grain warehouse, where she worked until her well-deserved retirement. One day, a young combine operator named Norman Santos noticed the cheerful brigade leader and began courting her actively. They dated for almost 2 years before quietly tying the knot. A year later, their first child, a boy, was born, and Lita named him Sergio after her late father. 4 years later, a girl, the father's favorite, joined the family. The young parents devoted all their efforts to work, hoping that their children would lack nothing. Norman, in particular, had ambitious dreams. "Lita, I want Sergio and Berta to receive a good education. They will graduate, settle in the city, and live in an apartment with all the conveniences. Then they'll start their own families and bring our grandchildren to visit us in the summer." Lita chuckled at her husband's ambitions. "Norman, for your plans to come true, we need something important." Her husband guessed correctly. "Money? Well, there won't be any problems with that. After all, we earn quite well, and our cow provides a significant income." Lita gazed at her husband affectionately. "Of course, these days, you can't go anywhere without money. But, Norman, it's about something else. The children themselves must want to learn to reap the rewards of their efforts. But our son shows no inclination toward knowledge. He spends his days idling away." Her husband optimistically remarked, "It'll pass, you'll see." However, Sergio didn't undergo any miraculous transformation. As he grew older, he distanced himself further from his family. In his final year of school, Sergio's behavior took a troubling turn that shocked not only the villagers but the entire region. The climax of his actions was a fateful incident that was still remembered by the old-timers. In April, precisely 2 months before graduation, Sergio and a group of his peers decided to let loose completely. To bolster their courage, they drank alcohol, and it triggered something in Sergio. "Guys, we're about to put on an exciting show. These will be unusual races. And the winner will get to enjoy the company of the world's best girls all evening." In the group, there were 2 girls who immediately squealed with delight. Sergio was initially confident of winning. The unique competition involved one participant getting behind the wheel of a car, while the others had to complete a race on bicycles. The winner would be the one who managed to overtake the car. There were no issues with the bicycles, but the car was a different story. Sergio was desperate and made an impulsive decision. Without asking, he took his father's car. Since his parents were at work and his father never hid the car keys, Sergio calmly opened the garage. His father often let him drive the vehicle during their joint trips, so Sergio was absolutely sure that his endeavor wouldn't have dire consequences. His younger sister saw everything from the window and tried to stop her brother. "Sergio, I'll tell Dad about it." Berta's appearance wasn't part of Sergio's plan, and he yelled at her. What are you going to tell? That you took the car without asking. To make it seem convincing, Sergio pretended to threaten his sister. Get out of here, you tattletale. Berta took a step back, but her eyes revealed a desire to get back at her brother for his rudeness. Sergio changed his tone. Berta, I promise I won't go out on the road. I'll just take a short ride on the old road and come back. Doubtfully, Berta looked at her brother. How long will you be gone? An hour or two, maybe even sooner. Just don't tell Mom and Dad anything. And in return for your silence, I'll let you use my game tokens whenever you want. Sergio had long noticed how his little sister coveted his collection. His promise had a profound impact on Berta, and she sealed her lips. Their father came home from work first and immediately noticed the car was missing. He realized right away that it was his son who had taken the car and threatened to give him a good scolding. However, the head of the family couldn't keep his promise because Sergio didn't return by nightfall. The couple searched the entire village but couldn't find any useful information. Some villagers had seen Norman's car, but they couldn't say for sure where it was headed. The parents spent a sleepless night, and it was only in the morning that Berta, under pressure, revealed that her older brother had planned to have races on the old road the previous day. She had seen her parents going crazy but had kept quiet because she really wanted to have access to his collection. Lita and Norman rushed in the indicated direction, but on the way, they encountered the local police officer, who looked away and then reported. Mushroom pickers found him in the morning. Doctors say there isn't much hope, he lost a lot of blood. They've taken him to the district hospital. The light dimmed in the eyes of the grieving mother, and she collapsed unconscious on the ground. The medical professionals couldn't do anything, and the 17-year-old boy passed away without regaining consciousness. The investigation lasted for several months, and all the participants in the incident claimed unanimously that Sergio was to blame for what happened. The young man had no experience, and during the chase, he lost control of the car on a turn, causing it to crash from a great height, turning the vehicle into a pile of metal. Sergio, with severe injuries, was trapped in the wreckage for a long time. The participants in the dangerous race scattered immediately, leaving the injured young man to his fate. Sergio lay in the quarry until morning, when mushroom pickers found him. After the death of their eldest son, the Santos family entered a period of mourning. Norman blamed himself for everything. If I had hidden the car keys, nothing would have happened. Lita didn't try to persuade him otherwise and remained silent. However, her silence conveyed that she also held her husband responsible for the tragedy. This burden proved too heavy, even for a sturdy man like Norman. He started drinking heavily, and one day, he showed up in a semi-conscious state and immediately passed out. Lita only realized it the next day, around lunchtime. She asked her daughter, "Berta, go check on your dad." The girl ran into her father's room, and her cry was heard from there. "Mom, I'm scared. Something's wrong with Dad, he's so cold." The man hadn't yet reached his 41st year when he passed away just a few months after Sergio's death. In the village, everyone pitied Lita. She went through 2 deaths in her family in 1 year. No one would wish for such a fate, even their worst enemy. However, Lita couldn't afford a moment of weakness because she had to take care of her daughter. She devoted all her love and care to Berta, but her daughter considered her mother's sacrifices to be the norm. With each passing day, her demands on her mother grew. The girl believed that her mother should fulfill any of her whims. But in return, she often forgot to say a simple thank you. The women at work sympathized with the forewoman, and one older colleague once told her, "Lita, don't spoil Berta. Children need discipline, but you've practically put a crown on her head." Lita didn't appreciate the woman's comment and defiantly said, "Think about your own grandchildren. I don't need anyone's advice." No one else at the grain depot attempted to open her eyes to the actual situation, but the reality was such that soon everyone started pointing fingers at Lita's daughter. Berta graduated from school with only 2 C grades on her report card. She easily entered the university but was expelled 6 months later because she skipped too many classes. Rumors spread throughout the village that Berta was associating with older men. One day, she showed up in the village in a white car with a companion who could have been her grandfather. She introduced her companion to her mother like this: "Mom, meet my boyfriend." Although, Lita didn't care about the guest and immediately confronted her daughter. "Berta, your suitor doesn't seem like much of a catch. He's got gray hair in one place. Why do you need this old geezer?" The girl accused her mother of being out of touch and left with her daddy on the white foreign car. However, just a few months later, she returned to the village, this time with a young man. To preempt any negative assumptions her mother might make, she immediately explained, "Mom, this is my producer." The unfamiliar word left the woman puzzled, but Berta clarified that she was taking vocal and dance lessons in the city and was planning to perform abroad, specifically at Turkish resorts. "Mom, don't worry. We're just helping a famous celebrity perform, nothing shady." Berta mentioned the artist's name, but Lita had never heard of this singer. She tried to find out more details about her daughter's unclear artistic activities, but citing her busy schedule, Berta left the same evening. The man accompanying her didn't say a word during the visit. However, the nosy village women who observed the visit from afar confidently declared, "He's not from around here. They're probably Caucasian, they're the only ones with dark skin." Berta didn't visit for a whole year, but she occasionally called her mother with a cheerful voice. "Mommy, everything's great, don't worry, I'll be back soon." And she kept her promise, although her mother wasn't particularly pleased about her return. Olivia, the village gossip, broke the news to Lita. She barged into the house unannounced, bringing a blast of frigid air with her. "Lita, your Berta has arrived." The woman rushed to the door, but Olivia casually added, "Don't rejoice too soon. It seems your daughter came with a gift." With this news delivered, the chief gossipmonger didn't hurry to leave the Santes house. Olivia was burning with impatience. She wanted to witness the reunion of mother and daughter herself so that she could later recount every detail to the other village gossips. Berta was wearing a short fur coat that only emphasized her protruding belly. "Mom, here I am." From her daughter's bewildered look, the woman understood everything without words. "Come in, my dear. Why are you freezing on the doorstep? You're home, and there's nothing to be afraid of here." Olivia had expected just about anything but this restrained reception. After waiting a few more minutes, she left on her own. 3 weeks later, Berta gave birth to a baby girl. When the little one was brought home from the maternity ward, the new grandmother scrutinized her for a long time. Berta interpreted her mother's curiosity in her own way. "Mom, if you're trying to find a resemblance to someone we know, you're wasting your effort. You don't know who Marina's father is, and I hope you never find out." Lita was shocked. "Can you really be like this? A child should have a father. Life can throw you hardships, but there are always two parents." Berta stared off into the distance and snapped with anger. "My daughter doesn't have a father. And I'd appreciate it if you, Mom, never brought up this topic with me. I wonder, how do you plan to raise a child on your own? I'm not the first, and I won't be the last. I'll manage." Berta was determined, though her voice lacked confidence. For a year, the wayward daughter diligently tried to portray herself as a caring mother. She cooked porridge and purees for little Marina and took her for walks every day. Lita began to gradually calm down and even started dreaming about her daughter's future. During lunch breaks, she shared with her coworkers, "Many women raise children without any outside help, and Berta has me. As soon as Marina gets a little older, Berta will start studying through distance learning. And who knows? She might meet a good person there." An elderly coworker, who had previously advised her to open her eyes, shook her head doubtfully. "It's a fresh story, and it's hard to believe. Lita, don't think I'm gossiping about your Berta, but the girls were saying that she got involved with the husband of our chief accountant. And a child won't be an obstacle when there's an itch in the same spot. Watch out, this Cupid's arrow might lead to trouble." In the evening, they had a confrontation. Lita demanded that her daughter end such a relationship. Berta, you're not only embarrassing yourself, but also me. Think about your daughter. What will people say when she grows up? The young mother didn't like the tone of the conversation and began shouting at her mother. Don't interfere where you're not wanted. This is my life, and I'll be the one in charge of it. I've had enough of all this. What have you had enough of? Everything. And this miserable village, and you with your moralizing. The heated argument had frightened little Marina, and the girl started crying. However, Berta didn't rush to comfort her daughter. She paced around the room for a few seconds, then stormed out of the house. All evening, she was making phone calls, and in the morning, she announced, I found a job in the city, but, with a little child, I can't stay there. Lita tensed up. What are you planning to do? I'll temporarily place Marina in a child care facility. I've heard many single mothers do that. While Berta was talking, her mother's patience finally snapped. Stop playing games with me. I won't allow you to mistreat my granddaughter. Get out of here and never show your face to me again. I'll even revoke your parental rights. Her mother's threats didn't scare the young woman. Instead, she seemed pleased and began packing her things. Lita watched her daughter and couldn't believe this was happening in reality. Little Marina happily babbled something to herself, paying no attention to the adults. However, when Berta was packing her suitcase, the child reached out her little hands. Mama. Berta indifferently kissed her daughter's chubby cheeks. Sweetie, Mommy needs to go earn some money. When I have enough, I'll come back for you. For now, you'll stay here with Grandma. Berta put on the same frivolous fur coat in which she had appeared at home a year ago. She hesitated for a moment, then grabbed the doorknob. Mom, could you give me money for the road? Lita took 2 bills out of her wallet and silently handed them to her daughter. At that moment, she wanted to stop Berta and ask her to reconsider, but her anger toward her daughter prevented her from taking that step. For almost 2 years, there was no news from Berta. Marina was growing up, delighting her grandmother with her little achievements. But one winter, just before New Year's, an unexpected visitor arrived, and at first, Lita didn't recognize him as Leo, the producer. The man entered the house and sat down without an invitation. With a barely noticeable accent, he said, Lita, I regret to inform you of some bad news. Berta is no longer with us. She has passed away. Lita leaned against the wall to keep from falling. How did she die? She never even had a simple cold. You must be conspiring or playing a cruel joke on me. Leo spoke calmly. No one can joke about such matters. Berta had the flu, but she didn't want to seek treatment, and the illness developed complications. I'm not well versed in medicine, but it was some severe form of lung inflammation. Where do you want to bury your daughter? Leo assisted Lita with the funeral and left her a substantial sum of money. As he bid farewell, he said, If you encounter any difficulties, call me. I must confess I loved Berta, but I couldn't abandon my family. Our laws are very strict. Only when this reserved man had left did Lita realize that she hadn't asked him about her daughter's occupation. Leo never appeared again, and she didn't try to find him. Lita decided to dedicate the rest of her life entirely to her granddaughter. As much as she could, she shielded the girl from rumors and negative influences. She told Marina various stories about her deceased mother, and the girl believed her mother had been a famous performer who toured the country. Marina was sitting in the waiting area, indifferently watching people rush by with suitcases and bags. She also needed to make a decision urgently, but she couldn't seem to solve this complex puzzle. A persistent thought nagged at her mind, causing her pain. She knew perfectly well what Aurora Blanco was all about, and yet she trusted her. Now she'd have to face the consequences of her foolishness. The new, unfamiliar life that had begun so magically on that summer evening when her school friends invited her to the city had abruptly come to an end. Alejandro, the man Aurora had called, had welcomed her with open arms. We urgently need a cook at our pancake house. I hope you know how to make pancakes. Marina nodded eagerly and was about to talk about her culinary skills, but the man quickly interrupted her. I'd love to hear about your achievements, but my job keeps me on the move. You can tell us all about it when you're there. It's a private establishment with a good reputation, so first, go for a medical checkup, and then we'll complete all the necessary formalities. Marina had never been to a big city before, and she stammered. But I don't know anything here. Could I go with the girls? Alejandro furrowed his brows, annoyed. Your friends will work at another place, but you'll be living in the same room. I've already arranged everything. Seeing that Marina hadn't budged from her spot, the manager sighed. What is it? Do I have to solve such problems for everyone? Fine, we'll figure something out. Wait in the hall for a moment. It took an hour for Alejandro to invite Marina to his office, where a young woman was sitting across from him and rapidly writing something. Marina, here's your escort. You'll both go through the medical examination together and then come back here. It was only by evening that Marina, tired and hungry, finally arrived at the hostel. Nora and Aurora had already settled into the room and greeted her with excited cries. Marina, we were worried about you. We're starving here. Marina grumbled in annoyance. Well, you could have at least prepared some food for yourselves. Aurora lazily got up from the bed. Why waste our energy when we have our very own chef? Marina, let's make a deal. Nora and I will take care of keeping the place tidy, and you'll cook for the three of us. Agreed? Marina didn't suspect anything sinister and agreed to this arrangement for sharing household responsibilities. She only asked, and how will we buy groceries? Will we chip in? Nora answered, of course, as soon as they give us an advance, we'll each contribute 2,000 or 3,000, and you can buy groceries according to your discretion. A day passed, then a week, but the girls still hadn't contributed their share to the common fund. One evening, Nora, nearly in tears, declared, Marina, you have no idea what kind of place we've ended up in. They fine us for every little thing, and we can't even use the restroom without paying. Marina, just keep buying things for now, and we'll reimburse you later. Marina woke up at the crack of dawn, preparing both breakfast and lunch. After a grueling day at work, her legs felt like jelly. Her hungry friends awaited her back at the dormitory. In the first 2 weeks, they almost reminded her daily about the debt they owed her. However, as the end of the month approached, they seemed to have forgotten about living off someone else's expenses. Marina couldn't wait for her shift to end and believed she'd never have anything to do with her former classmates again. But the last day of the month arrived, and the dormitory manager knocked on the door. Girls, today is the last day. Let's settle the payment for your stay. Aurora burst into tears again. Oh, they didn't give us our salaries today. They promised it for tomorrow. The dormitory manager remained firm. Those are your problems. If you don't pay today, I won't let you back into the hostel tomorrow. Marina reached for her wallet. All right, girls, I'll pay for you today, and you can give me the money back tomorrow. Her friends happily said. Marina, we'll pay you back down to the last penny. And we'll even throw in a little extra as a commission. By the way, have you received your salary yet? Yes, to be honest, I was expecting more. So, you didn't like the job? No, I'll be looking for something else. Aurora, in a conspiratorial tone, promised. I'll put in a good word for you with Alejandro. He always has something interesting in store for his friends. The girls started packing their things slowly, and Marina decided to take a shower before bedtime. When she returned to the room, her friends were nowhere to be found. There was a note on the dining table. Goodbye, sucker, and warm regards to Grandma. The ground seemed to shift under Marina's feet as she felt a sense of unease. She decided to check her wallet. To her dismay, there was not even a little change left. She cried out in despair. Those jerks took everything. What am I going to do now? There was still hope that the owner of the pancake house would extend her contract, so she headed back to her old workplace the next morning. However, a new employee was already working in the kitchen. Marina approached Alejandro, but he was nowhere to be found. She returned to the hostel, but the dormitory manager refused her entry. "I've already assigned your room to new tenants. If you want, I can offer you a single-person luxury room. It's available. But you'll have to pay for your stay in advance." Marina pleaded. "Please, just let me in, and I'll pay you back later. I just don't have any money right now." The dormitory manager stared at her, frequently blinking her eyelashes with chunks of mascara hanging from them. Marina said gloomily, "They took all my money, not even spare change was left." The woman's face flared up like a torch. "What audacity! Are you trying to say there are criminals here? Get out of here and never show your face to me again." To eject the unwanted tenant, the dormitory manager used not only words but also physical force, pushing the girl out of her establishment. Following Marina, her suitcase and open zipper bag were thrown out. Marina checked her belongings right by the entrance and knocked on the door. "My pot is still in the kitchen. Please return it." About 5 minutes passed, and someone's hand threw a container out of the window. Marina picked up her belongings and headed to the bus stop. For the first time in her life, she was taking public transport without a ticket, but surprisingly, she felt no guilt about it. Marina's brain was working in emergency mode, trying to find a way out of her predicament. In such a state, she was trying not to be hit by a massive bus when she reached the main station. Her life was saved because the bus was moving at a minimal speed and only lightly brushed against her. As she found herself on the hood of the Jeep, Marina screamed in fear. "Oh my, dear." The driver who emerged from the car rushed toward her. "Where are you going with your suitcases? You've dented my whole car." The infuriated driver couldn't stop himself and vented everything he thought about the girl's actions. He might have continued renting for a long time, but a respectable-looking man who also got out of the car interrupted him. He calmly but sternly instructed the driver. "Sancho, don't shout. There's no need to attract unnecessary attention." The driver, still trying to justify himself, pointed at the dent on the hood. "Manrique, look at what she did. Who's going to pay for the repairs?" "Repairs are trivial. The most important thing is that no one was injured in the collision." "Young lady, are you okay? Do you feel all right?" Marina didn't immediately realize that this question was directed at her. It wasn't until the distinguished passenger of the Jeep asked about her well-being again that she quietly replied, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I was lost in thought and didn't notice your car." The traffic jam lasted no more than a minute, but in city traffic, that was considered too much of a delay. Honking from all directions filled the air, and Marina hurriedly moved away from the scene of the collision. She ran towards the station without looking back, while an inner voice chided her. "You nearly got run over. You need to be more careful. This isn't the countryside with just one road." Since Marina still hadn't decided what to do next, she entered the waiting area. After sitting there for about 2 hours, unsuccessfully searching for a solution, she was on the verge of calling her grandmother to urgently send her money for the journey. However, her mobile phone showed no signs of life. With frustration, she muttered to herself, "Darn it, I forgot to charge it yesterday." By evening, the flow of people had increased, and many future passengers headed straight to the cafeteria. A decent line formed there very quickly. Marina suddenly had an idea that seemed worth pursuing. Picking up her luggage, she headed decisively to the cafeteria, and the people in line buzzed with disapproval, thinking that Marina was trying to disrupt the strict order of service. "Where are you going? Are you special? Get in line." The cafeteria worker also scolded her. "Young lady, have some decency. I still won't serve you out of turn." Despite the angry shouts, Marina continued to approach the counter and, looking directly at the cafeteria worker, declared, "Ma'am, I don't need your pastries." The cafeteria worker was puzzled. "Then why did you barge in like that? What if I help you? I'm a versatile cook and can do anything." The food service worker became wary. And why, all of a sudden, do you want to help me? I need money for my journey. They took all my money. She didn't get a chance to explain her predicament because the cafeteria worker exclaimed loudly, "Manuel, come to the counter urgently." Immediately, as if appearing from the ground, a policeman emerged. "What seems to be the problem, Eleonora?" The cafeteria worker nodded towards Eleonora, who stood there, naively smiling. "Look, this young scammer tried to take money from me." Marina couldn't believe her ears. She turned her head, expecting support, but the entire queue sided with the cafeteria worker. Someone even yelled, "Get rid of this troublemaker. People want to grab a bite, and she's causing a circus here." The policeman took the girl by the arm and politely suggested, "Come with me." "Why?" "I haven't done anything wrong. I just offered my help. Come with me, we'll sort it out there." The girl tried to free herself from the policeman's firm grip, but all her attempts were in vain, and the polite tone of the station's enforcer turned into rudeness. Manuel even shouted at her, "For resisting, you can spend 15 days in jail. Better behave quietly and don't struggle." A nauseating wave of foreboding welled up in the girl's throat, and at that moment, the man from the car she had collided with earlier appeared. "What's going on here?" Manuel immediately recognized this man and began to explain to him with obsequiousness. "Manrique, this young lady was trying to extort money, so I was obliged to intervene." The man grimaced. "Tell someone else about your vigilance and responsibility. I, for one, know who's engaged in such activities here." While the senior lieutenant contemplated his response to the esteemed citizen, Manrique firmly ordered him, "Let the girl go." Marina felt the policeman's grip loosen. Manrique picked up the girl's suitcase. "Is this your luggage?" Marina nodded affirmatively, and her savior confidently led the way to the exit. She didn't immediately notice that the very same driver who had recently insulted her with derogatory words was following them closely. She had no choice but to follow the men. Thanks to her grandmother's upbringing, Marina learned from an early age that she should never get into a car with strangers, especially men. However, Manrique inspired trust, so for the first time in her life, she disregarded this rule. Still, as she got into the car, she asked cautiously, "Where are we going?" The man turned halfway toward her. "That's something we'll decide together, but first, you'll tell me what happened to you." Marina briefly recounted how she and her friends had come to the city to earn money and how her classmates had swindled her. Learning that the girl came from a village, Manrique was pleased. "I grew up in a remote village too. It was what launched me into the mainstream of life. I started my life in a small village with a peculiar name. Of course, life there wasn't sweet, but it left me with many cherished memories. What I remember most is tending to the cows. You know, we had a specific schedule, and everyone took turns being the cowherd for a day or two." The man smiled and continued, "I recall that during one of these shifts, I dozed off on the grass, and one of the cows disappeared. She had such a bright name, Carmen. As they say nowadays, the owner gave her that name on a whim because she had such a character." Unexpectedly, the driver, Sancho, said, "I hope you found the missing cow." Manrique advised the chauffeur, "You keep an eye on the road." "I didn't find the cow, and my father whipped me so hard with a belt that I couldn't sit for 2 weeks. But Carmen showed up by evening. So, it turns out the punishment was unfair." Sancho chimed in again, and the owner silenced him with a fist gesture. For a few minutes, silence reigned in the SUV. Marina guessed that Manrique was considering how to help her. She hesitantly said, "I'm willing to do any job, even cleaning. We'll decide that tomorrow. For now, you'll stay overnight at my house." His decision sounded like an order, and Marina obediently followed the man to a house located in a village not far from the city. At the entrance, an elderly woman greeted them, and the owner asked her, "Anna, show this young lady her room and feed her." Anna silently led Marina to the second floor. Here's your room, and I'll bring dinner a little later. Marina was so exhausted from the day's events that she fell into a deep slumber immediately. She dreamed about something, but she couldn't recall any of her nighttime adventures. The next morning, Anna woke her up. The woman brought her breakfast on a tray and informed her, "Manrique will be waiting for you in the hall on the first floor in 15 minutes." Marina felt like she had stepped into a fairy tale movie as she enjoyed the comforts of a wealthy home. However, time didn't allow her to relax. After devouring 2 fresh toasts and a cup of coffee, she hurried downstairs, where Manrique was already waiting for her. "Good morning, dear lady. While I had some free time, I looked into your complicated situation, and I can inform you that some changes happened." Manrique's old-fashioned way of speaking made it challenging for Marina to grasp the meaning of his words. She tensed up, waiting for her benefactor to get to the point. Finally, Manrique cleared his throat and continued, "Perhaps, Marina, you won't like my proposal, but at the moment, this is the only option available. My fiancée recently let go of her cook, and now she's in search of a new staff member." Marina exclaimed eagerly, "I want to work." Manrique made a cautionary gesture. "Don't hurry, let me finish. This is a very important, perhaps crucial, point. You see, my fiancé has, to put it mildly, an unbearable temper. Household staff in their house lasts no more than 2 or 3 months." Marina, still optimistic, declared, "I can endure it, I'm very patient." "If that's the case, then let's go meet your new employers." Manrique dialed a number and said firmly, "David, be at home, I have a new cook for you." "No, better send your girlfriend somewhere for a while, she might scare the girl off." "Yes, she's quite young, around 20. Marina felt a bit uncomfortable being discussed in her presence, but she pretended not to notice this lack of tact. They were back in the SUV, but this time Manrique was behind the wheel. On the way, he shared a little about his son. "David, my son, is a professional athlete. He's a track and field athlete and even participated in the Olympics, though he only won silver. He really wanted to get the gold, but a serious injury got in the way, and he had to say goodbye to high-level sports. He was planning to become a coach, but he couldn't find his calling in that field and decided to follow in my footsteps. I must say, my son has become quite a good businessman. However, in his personal life, luck hasn't been on his side." Manrique fell silent, realizing he had said too much. Marina understood that she wasn't in a position to ask questions and remained silent too. The journey took just over an hour, and Marina was fully immersed in her somber thoughts. She jumped when Manrique said, "Well, we've arrived." David's house was breathtaking in terms of luxury and scale. Compared to it, Manrique's own cottage seemed very modest and dull. The owner of this mansion also left a strong impression on Marina. He appeared to be no older than 30, with a well-toned physique that hinted at an athletic past. David first warmly greeted his father and then turned to Marina, saying, "Don't be afraid, we don't bite here. Besides, consider that love resides in this big, bright house." The statement was made with pomp, and Marina particularly remembered the last words. She was quite taken with the idea of living in such a house and sharing her love with someone who reciprocated. However, at that moment, these words took on an entirely different meaning. While David was talking with his father, Marina explored the young businessman's residence with interest. Just as the tour was reaching its peak, David's wife arrived. She politely greeted her father-in-law and then asked, "So, where is this village miracle who knows how to cook?" Manrique called out to Marina, "Marina, come here." Viola, with her demeanor, made it clear that she was the one who held all the authority here. Marina timidly glanced at the well-groomed young woman and waited for her destiny to be decided. The hostess inspected her as if she were not a living person but a museum exhibit. However, apparently, the results of the inspection satisfied her completely because she asked in a softer tone, "How do you like our home?" Marina, stuttering a bit, replied, Everything here is magnificent. Viola liked Marina's response, and she invited the girl to the kitchen, saying, "Then follow me, and I'll show you your workplace. I hope you'll like it. And you, gentlemen, don't get bored while we're gone." The kitchen was spacious and equipped with the latest technology. The hostess closely watched Marina's facial expression. Noticing that the kitchen also impressed her, Viola made a rather amicable comment. "I'm not used to prying into people's souls, so I won't bombard you with questions. What matters most to me are the professional qualities of my staff. Don't take offense, Marina, but we're going to have a little test now. Prepare a few dishes using the ingredients in the refrigerator that you're best at." The kitchen in the house was equipped with the latest technology. Marina was skilled in handling such appliances and quickly prepared lunch. Manrique was very anxious about his protege and decided to stay for the tasting. Marina passed the first test successfully, as was evident by the empty plates on the table. However, it was important for her to hear the opinion of the strict hostess. Viola entered the kitchen as Marina was finishing washing the dishes. The hostess was surprised and asked, "There's a dishwasher in the house, why didn't you use it?" Marina replied, "I don't fully trust machines, washing by hand seems more reliable." Viola responded, "Please, do as you prefer." The hostess took a seat on a poof and said, "I must admit, you pleased me, everything was delicious and satisfying. But I must tell you that I'm on a diet from time to time, so on those days, you'll need to prepare something else for me." Marina agreed, saying, "All right, as you wish." Viola chuckled and said, "Marina, do you always agree with everything?" Marina replied, "Not always, but I believe that the owner's word takes precedence." Viola smiled and said, "You have the right attitude. Maybe we'll even become friends. You can't imagine how boring it is to live here. I'm tired of the same faces, I want new acquaintances and exciting experiences, but for now, it's off limits for me. You see, my husband and I are expecting a little one." Marina's lips stretched into a smile, and she said, "That's wonderful that you'll have a baby." It seems that the young hostess was really craving some real conversation, so she shared all her secrets with the new cook. "You know, we've been trying for several years, and we decided to go for IVF. Have you heard of such a method?" "Of course, I've heard. But it's probably very expensive, right?" "Right, it's not cheap at all, but what won't you do for family happiness? My husband is obsessed with having an heir, and I have to agree, otherwise." Viola didn't reveal what awaited her if she didn't meet her husband's demands. She left the kitchen, leaving the young cook alone with her thoughts. Marina was pleased with her first day of work, especially the candid conversations with the hostess. Before going to sleep, her dreams took her to a distant future. She saw herself as the owner of a beautiful house surrounded by flowers, and beside her was a man who looked a lot like David. Despite Marina's limited life experience, she knew it was best not to attract too much attention from the owners. So, from morning until late evening, she spent her time in the kitchen. Meanwhile, life was going its own way at Romero's house. One day, the young spouses started arguing too loudly, and fragments of their conversation reached the ears of the new cook. That day, Marina realized that not everything in the family of the owners was as rosy as it seemed. David was trying to persuade his wife emphatically. "Viola, it's like in sports, you have to believe in your victory, but you get discouraged after the first failure." The woman sharply retorted to her husband, "David, I'm tired of your sports analogies. Bringing a child into the world is not like running a 100-meter dash for the best time. Understand that time is passing, I'm already 32. Women give birth even at 45. Just don't despair." "David, what are you talking about? We can't keep trying indefinitely." Marina guessed that the hostess was not having an easy time with her pregnancy. But she felt uncomfortable being an unwitting witness to their conversation. Trying to remain unnoticed, the girl sneaked into the kitchen. A few minutes later, the hostess appeared there. "Marina, pour me a glass of wine." The girl widened her eyes. "Viola, but you're not supposed to." The hostess smirked. "I can now. We didn't succeed with pregnancy." "Such bad luck." For nearly 2 hours, the woman complained to the cook about her fate. During this time, she emptied a whole bottle and was about to start a new one, but her husband stopped her. "Viola, are you back to your old ways again? Go to your room and rest." The man led his wine-weary wife out of the kitchen but soon returned. "Marina, please don't think anything of it. My wife is going through a very difficult period." "David, I don't think anything of it. Honestly, why would you care about the thoughts of an ordinary cook?" The owner pondered for a moment and then agreed. "You're right, I don't care." The man nervously clenched and then unclenched his fists. "I'm sorry for burdening you with unnecessary conversation, but I just have no one else to talk to. You have a wonderful father." "No, you don't understand. I can't discuss such delicate matters even with him." "But you can with me? I'm a complete stranger to you. That's the main advantage. You won't tell anyone about our family issue." "Of course, I won't. But why all this? I'm just a simple cook, and my job is to cook well and deliciously." David brightened up, saying, "By the way, in that regard, you excel. You really cook well, and even Viola praises you. I'm sorry for distracting you from your work. I'll go check on my troublemaker." The owner left the kitchen, but the brief conversation with him made Marina think. In David's words, when he talked about his wife, there was no warmth. Viola also didn't seem to express any passionate feelings toward her husband, and this mutual indifference between the young spouses was palpable from a distance. A thought crossed the girl's mind: why were these people living together? They even called their estate the House of Love. Yes, love certainly hadn't visited here. For about a week, Viola didn't leave her sanctuary. Marina brought her food to her room. Every time, the hostess asked for wine, but David adamantly forbade her from having any. Taking care of the unhappy woman unexpectedly brought the owner and the cook closer. David started coming to the kitchen more often, and he no longer seemed as sad and withdrawn as before. One day, out of habit, he came to her and suggested, "Marina, you've been living in our house for 3 months now, but I've never seen you take a break. I'd like to offer you a walk through these lovely places." The girl was taken aback, and the owner encouraged her. "Come on, what's the harm? I promise I won't lead you into a dark forest. We'll just take a short walk and chat." "What about Viola? What does Viola have to do with it?" The man suddenly laughed. "I completely forgot that you adhere to traditional principles that don't allow for any relationship between a married man and an unmarried girl." Marina felt ashamed of her rebellious thoughts and reassured the owner. "David, you've got it all wrong. I wasn't thinking anything like that. I just have a lot of work to do, and I was planning to prepare a special fish dish for dinner. You'll have time for that. I promise the walk will be short. The air here is exceptionally pure, and these places look especially enchanting in the autumn. Every girl dreams of finding herself in a fairy tale, and that's what I'm offering you, a little magical journey." David was sharing stories about his sports career and his father's business, and she was listening with interest. It was easy for Marina to talk with this man. She enjoyed it. In the evenings, she replayed in her mind every second of the walk with the owner and felt happy. After a few days, David invited her for another walk, which she gladly accepted. Soon, their park strolls became regular, and the girl increasingly caught herself with a racing heart in response to his gaze. She pushed away thoughts that suggested the owner's attention might be more than mere politeness. But what bothered her the most was Viola's indifference to her husband's meetings with the cook. In late October, the owner announced that his wife was going on vacation. "You see, Marina, Viola has gone through so much in the last few months, and the stress has taken a toll on her health. So, we've decided she needs a break." The girl didn't understand why the owner was telling her all this and simply nodded in agreement. She watched as David accompanied his wife to the airport. In the evening, he returned tired and went straight to the kitchen. "Well, I've seen off my Princess Frog. Now, I'll wait with you for her return, but I'm sure we won't be bored." Marina didn't say anything, and once again, it seemed strange to her that the owner was confiding in her. In the evening, an inexplicable unease washed over her. However, her worry disappeared when the man suggested another walk outside the house. Marina felt more protected than within its walls. This time, they strolled longer than usual, and David acted more relaxed around her. When they came across a stream on their path, without asking for her consent, he lifted her in his arms and carried her across the water. His strong embrace stirred something in her soul, and she no longer could or wanted to resist what was meant to happen. In the middle of the night, David quietly opened the door to her room, and due to excitement, she couldn't utter a word and just closed her eyes tightly. For the first time in her life, Marina woke up in a man's embrace. David was still asleep, and she gazed at his masculine features for a long time. Perhaps her gaze was too intense because the man stirred restlessly and murmured, "You're an incredible girl. I've never felt this good with anyone else." Those words were equivalent to a confession, and Marina realized that she had long been in love with the owner. On that October morning, she didn't want to think about the consequences of their forbidden relationship. She wanted to savor the happiness that fate had unexpectedly bestowed on her. 2 weeks passed like a day. Viola returned from her vacation looking healthier and more tanned. Marina didn't immediately notice that the hostess was closely scrutinizing her. The girl tried to ignore these looks and even avoided accidental encounters with the owner. But after a few weeks, she realized that what she had feared the most had happened. She was pregnant with another man's child. The realization of her wrongdoing was so overwhelming that Marina fell ill. Her poor health caused a real commotion in the house. Viola was the first to be concerned. She cautiously entered her room and sat on the edge of the bed. "Marina, you really scared us. I've called our family doctor. I want him to examine you." The girl was in a panic. She understood that an experienced doctor would immediately determine the cause of her illness. "Viola, I'm fine. There's no need for a doctor. Everything will be better tomorrow." "All right, we'll see how you feel tomorrow, but for now, rest. My husband and I are going to have dinner at a restaurant tonight." The next day, Marina, summoning her last strength, got out of bed. But as soon as she entered the kitchen, a wave of nausea forced her to rush to the bathroom. She splashed her face with cold water, hoping it would help alleviate the sickness. From the depths of her consciousness, a thought emerged. What were you going to do? Soon, it will all become noticeable, and your hostess will kick you out in disgrace. She realized that she needed to tell David about the pregnancy, but she was very afraid of his reaction. Nevertheless, this meeting took place. David appeared in the kitchen. He was in a good mood and immediately asked, "Marina, how are you feeling? Honestly, you don't look very healthy." The girl was afraid to look him in the eyes and mumbled, "I'm fine, you don't need to worry about me." Well, we're all humans, not animals. Although animals probably care more for their fellow creatures, they often show selfless kindness and care, and I also want to follow their example. Look out of the window. Do you see what wonderful weather it is? Marina understood where the owner was heading and began to refuse. "No, not today. I'm not in the mood to go outside." The man insisted. "You need some fresh air urgently, or else you'll wither away here in the kitchen." He spoke deliberately loudly, and the girl understood that Viola was aware of everything happening in the house. Without much enthusiasm, the girl complied with the owner's wishes. "All right, I'm going to get ready now." The autumn air really had a beneficial effect on the girl. They slowly walked along the alley strewn with yellow leaves and were silent. David was the first to break the silence. "Marina, I want to know what's going on." Confidence left the girl, and she burst into tears on her beloved's chest. "David, I don't know how it happened, but it seems like I'm pregnant." She expected anything but what followed next. The man pulled her close and began showering her face and head with kisses. "You have no idea how happy I am. It's the happiest news I've been waiting for so many years." Marina gently pushed him away. "But Viola? How do I tell her about this?" "Don't worry, my dear. I'll handle this when the time comes." Marina calmed down a bit and patiently awaited the outcome, but the days flew by and nothing changed. One day, while they were taking a walk, Marina asked David, "Soon it'll be easy to notice my belly. I can't live in ignorance." "Don't rush things. The main thing is that you don't think about anything bad. It's just not the right time now." And so the monotonous days and weeks continued. Marina's figure became noticeably rounded, and it became impossible to hide the pregnancy. Viola appeared in the kitchen as unexpectedly as always. She was sitting in her favorite armchair. "Marina, am I right? Are you pregnant?" The young cook almost fainted, so the hostess had to catch her. Viola remarked reproachfully, "Why are you reacting so keenly? I'm not asking who the father of the child is. I'm not interested in such details. What worries me is something entirely different. Where are you going to keep the baby? Do you think your grandma will be happy to see you like this?" Viola gestured to an imaginary belly and stared at the cook. "Why are you silent? Maybe I want to help you." Marina managed to squeeze out, "How can you help me?" "Good job. Our conversation is becoming businesslike, and that's a good sign. I think I'll have a little wine." The hostess herself took out a beautiful bottle from the fridge and poured a little ruby liquid into a glass. "Now we can get down to business. You're very young, and you still have everything ahead of you, so you don't need a child right now. The baby will just hold you back by the hands and feet. And as for me and my husband, you know we have a problem in that department." Marina shook her head. No way. I won't give it away to anyone for any amount of money." Viola stood up from her armchair and tried to hug the girl, but she evaded her. The hostess looked at her contemptuously. "You're a fool. You'll even beg me to get rid of the shame. Think it over carefully and weigh all the pros and cons." Viola left the kitchen, but her voice continued to resonate in the unhappy girl's head. She didn't know what to do now that her secret had become known to everyone. There was no one to consult with either. An inner voice suggested that she quickly run away from this house, but she couldn't bring herself to take such a step because David asked her to endure. He said he would handle everything, and she trusted him. With such restless thoughts, Marina fell asleep, but in the middle of the night she woke up from an unbearable thirst. Barefoot, she descended the stairs to the first floor and was about to open the kitchen door when she noticed a strip of light seeping from below. Anxiety took hold of her again, and she wanted to return to her room. But she heard the voices of the couple in the kitchen. Viola was speaking in a loud whisper. "David, you did the right thing, although you could have warned me. This idea had come to mind more than once, but I was afraid you wouldn't agree to such an option. Only later, when this naive fool appeared in our house, did I realize that it was our only chance." Marina held her breath and waited for the host's response, but what he said shocked her. David tried to convince his wife. "Viola, firstly, I can't do that. And you completely misunderstood me. How else should I understand you? Have you, a serious businessman, become infatuated with this village girl? You can tell her fairy tales, but I stopped believing in them long ago." David remained silent for a long time, then asked, "And how do you plan to carry out your plan?" "Well, it's very simple. The baby will be born, and we'll take it. You're the father, and you have the full right to decide the fate of your child." "And what will you tell Marina?" "I have no intention of explaining anything to that girl. I'll show her the door. And if she tries to make any accusations against us, which I highly doubt, no one will believe her anyway." Marina wanted to scream, but she covered her mouth with her palm so that even her breath couldn't be heard by the owners. It became quiet in the kitchen again, and then David hesitantly said, "I need to think it over." Marina heard approaching footsteps and hastily hid. She couldn't hear the end of the conversation between the spouses and started gathering her things. In a moment of danger, the instinct of a mother kicked in, and the young woman started searching for ways to escape. During her time working in the Romero house, she studied all the entrances and exits. The night in the raging storm didn't frighten her. She put on a cloak and, stepping cautiously, made her way to the secret passage. A minute later, she was already outside. This time Marina had money, and all she had to do was get to the city. When she left the Romero house, her first thought was to seek help from Enrique, but she immediately dismissed that idea, imagining the way David's father would look at her. After all, she had gotten involved with a married man and violated a taboo. The only way out was to return to the village, and Marina headed for the train station. She bought a ticket at the counter and patiently waited for the train. Deep down, she held onto the hope that David had already noticed her absence and set out to search for her. She imagined that he would suddenly appear at the station and say that everything she heard was untrue. But the hands on the large station clock relentlessly moved forward, and the one she foolishly believed in never showed up. Soon, boarding was announced, and the expectant mother hurried to the platform. She was afraid to imagine how her grandmother would greet her and what would be said about her in the village. She settled on the lower berth and, stroking her belly, whispered silently, "It's okay, my little one, everything will be fine for us. And people will gossip a bit and then calm down." In her dream, Viola appeared to her, only with a snake's head. The landlady reached out to her with tentacle-like hands and demanded, "Give me the child. It's mine." Marina struck at those hands, but her blows didn't reach their target. Someone started shaking her. "Miss, wake up. You're scaring the whole train." Marina opened her eyes, still not understanding where she was. The conductor advised her, "You should lie down, it's not very comfortable to sleep sitting in your condition. That's why you're having all these horrors in your dreams." Marina thanked the kind woman for her care and settled on the lower berth. She no longer dreamed of Viola's snake hands. She saw her grandmother, who was busy in the kitchen as usual. "It's okay, dear, we'll get through this." Is it really a calamity? Gossip is like the wind, it will pass and disappear without a trace. Rumors are the same, they'll rustle and soon be forgotten. The station was sparsely populated in the morning hours. Only now did Marina remember that she hadn't eaten anything since yesterday. With her suitcase, she headed to the buffet. The buffet waitress was staring at her with curious eyes, and she sighed. The girl thanked her and continued on her way. At first, she wanted to take a taxi to get home, but then changed her mind. Whatever will be, there's nothing to hide anymore. Olivia was the first to cross her path. The annoying old woman froze, and when the initial shock wore off, she screamed for everyone on the street to hear. "Look, everyone, here she is, and she's not a speck of dust. I told Lita that bad blood would always show." Marina wanted to avoid the gossiper, but she stood still in the middle of the road. "So, how was living in the city? Look at the belly you've grown." Without anger, the girl murmured, "Witch." But Olivia was eagerly waiting for this and got angry. "Look, she's even insulting me. If I'm a witch, then who are you? And let me tell you who you are. A promiscuous girl." But this time her words didn't hit their target. Marina, nevertheless, bypassed the elderly woman as she continued to spew insults. But the old woman had already done her dark deed. All the residents who were free from their household chores came out to catch a glimpse of Lita's granddaughter. Some sighed and pitied Marina, while others threw sarcastic remarks at her. With all her might, the unhappy girl tried to hold back her tears, and only when she reached her grandmother's doorstep did she burst into tears. Lita rushed to console her granddaughter. "It's good that you came. Your friends have told me such things about you, but I don't believe a word they say. Don't break your heart, you can't be upset right now. Later, you'll tell me everything, and we'll think together about what to do." Although the tumultuous encounter still affected Marina, she noted that her grandmother was saying the same words as the kind Manrique. Remembering this man and her shattered hopes, the girl burst into tears even more. It took tremendous effort from Lita to calm her granddaughter, but before Marina could compose herself, Olivia burst into the house. "Let me tell you, Lita, that this was to be expected. Your Marina walked through the village, proudly holding her head high, and now she's come back, tail between her legs. And you protect her," Lita said wearily. "Who do I need to protect? You? I don't need your protection. I have a son who's a police officer and a grandson. Now let's see who will win." Lita grabbed a poker and headed towards Olivia. The latter screamed in horror. "You're truly crazy, Lita. I will write a statement against you for threatening me." The door slammed shut loudly, and Olivia ran off down the street. Lita sat down on a chair next to her granddaughter. "It's okay, Marina, we'll get through this trouble. The most important thing is that we're together, and everything else is nonsense." Everyone in the village was still buzzing for about a week, then everything quieted down. Marina gradually recovered in her childhood home, but for a long time, she hesitated to show herself on the street. However, her voluntary seclusion did not deprive her of the latest news. From her grandmother, she learned that Pablo's farm had finally gone bankrupt and that the company was being sold at auction. "Marina, I saw the new owner with my own eyes, such a distinguished man. And he has an expensive car, it's all sparkling," Lita said. Marina was least interested in Pablo's farm's future, but out of respect for her grandmother, she maintained the conversation. "Grandma, nowadays everyone in the city has such cars. My boss and his father have cars like that too. They're living quite comfortably, and they indulge themselves in anything they want." The girl had already shared her misfortunes with her grandmother. She didn't hide her love story, so Lita remarked with regret, "You shouldn't have run away. You could have demanded child support from this businessman. Why not? Since he's the father, let him help raise the baby." Marina frowned. "Grandma, don't you understand that they conspired with his wife to take my baby away from me? That's why I ran away. But David, he never denied the child. On the contrary, he was very happy when I told him." Lita shrugged her shoulders. "Goodness, this world must have turned upside down if such atrocities are happening. I can't understand how they can take a child away from a mother." Viola knew the answer to that question. When she discovered the young cook's disappearance, she went into a rage. In a fit of negative emotions, the woman attacked her husband. "It's all your fault, David. I'm sure you let that fool in on our plans. That's why she ran away." The recent events affected the man, and he asked irritably, "And what do you think I should do? Isn't it obvious? I have to spell everything out for you." "Try to find your Marina and convince her," Viola replied. The man stared into the woman's face, with whom he had lived for almost 8 years. "Viola, I have another option, and it's much simpler and more rational than yours. I think the best solution for us is to break up. Can't you see that our family life is not going well? We're different, as if from different planets." Viola did not expect such a turn of events. At first, she burst into hysterical laughter and then openly threatened her husband. "Don't even dream of getting rid of me, you've picked the wrong person. If you dream of finding your own cook and tying your life to her, I will make sure you forget your own name." David looked at his wife with regret. "How did I not see through you before? Viola, you are a primitive creature, like a worm or a jellyfish. You can threaten me all you want now, but all your words are empty noise. And if you think you have a claim to a share in the business, you can temper your appetite because you won't get anything. We'll see about that." The next day, David discovered that his wife had disappeared from home. However, her things remained in their usual places. He realized that anger consumed Viola, and she had decided to seek revenge on Marina. He was deeply concerned about the lives of this modest girl and their unborn child. Something had to be done. He understood that Viola, who was accustomed to luxury, would do anything to avoid changing her lifestyle. Of course, Blinded by fury, she didn't understand that everything would eventually come to light. So David needed to take care of not only Marina but also Viola to prevent her from causing any foolishness. He paced the room. Ironically, just yesterday, he had solemnly promised his father to help him in his new venture. In his old age, his father had decided to take up farming. He had been talking about it for a while, and David had even made some calculations with him. But David didn't expect his father to find a suitable farm so quickly. David wouldn't say he disliked the countryside. He loved it, but only on the level of excursions and nature. He would support his father in any case, and especially after his revelation that he wanted to spend his old age in the countryside, David told him that his father could always rely on him. Although, in the grand scheme of things, his father would have done just fine without his help. After all, it was his father, not David, who started the family business. Yes, his father taught and guided David as well. They always had a very warm relationship. His mother passed away early, which brought them even closer, and now David realized he needed to go to his father and seek his advice. He knew his father never liked Viola, but he tactfully stayed out of their relationship. David grabbed his phone. "Hey, Dad, where are you?" "Oh, David? I was just about to call and tell you not to come to the farm. I returned to the city because I needed to resolve some issues. I'll also get some building materials. Is everything all right? You sound somewhat agitated. I don't even know how to say it. Dad, I need to talk to you." "All right, come over." "What's the matter?" "Let's meet at our restaurant in an hour." "Okay, see you soon, Dad." David knew very well that his father wouldn't pat him on the head for Marina. In fact, he would scold him regardless, even if Marina threw herself at him. The situation now was very peculiar. Only after Marina disappeared did David suddenly realize that he absolutely had to find her. Moreover, he realized that the entire facade of the family he had was worth nothing compared to what he felt for Marina and their future child. "David, how could you? Marina seemed like a very decent girl to me, or was I mistaken?" David shook his head. "No, Dad, you weren't mistaken. She is actually very good. You know, the real deal. And I think she didn't just run away for no reason. I suspect she overheard our conversation." "Your conversation? What was so terrible about it?" When David sighed and told him what the conversation was about, Manrique even jumped up. "David, I could understand that your, God forgive me, wife could have such thoughts. But you, how could you even think of such a thing? By the way, where is Viola now?" David sighed. "Dad, she disappeared, and I'm afraid she decided to do something bad to Marina." Manrique landed on a chair with a thud. "Then I really don't understand why you're here and not with Marina. You're going to scold me again, but besides Marina being from the village, I don't know anything else. Viola hired her for work, and Viola checked her documents. So, your sweetheart knows where to find her?" David looked his father in the eye. "It seems so, damn it. I completely overlooked that. We need to do something urgently. You should have done something right away. Sit down, don't bother thinking." David fell silent. He knew very well that his father didn't become a businessman for no reason. He started somewhat illegally at some point. Or rather, completely illegally. He never asked, but he knew that everyone feared his dad in the 1990s. It was then that his father built his fortune in just 1 year and then opened several companies with it. You didn't have to be particularly gifted to understand that the first money had a not very good trail behind it. Manrique stood up and walked aside. He talked for a long time on the phone with someone, then made another call. Finally, he returned to the table. Well, now we wait. It didn't take half an hour before his phone rang. Yes, I'm listening. He listened carefully to what he was being told, then quickly looked at David and said, "We'll be there soon." David was silently staring at his father. Well, it turns out your wife isn't that determined. Tell me, does she have a drinking problem? Well, I see. So, she's at the bar, and she's just a mess now. A month after her arrival, Aurora and Nora met Marina. Aurora was hanging on Rodrigo's arm. Oh, look, Marina. Can you believe it? She's pregnant too. Nora chimed in. Yeah, seems like everyone comes to the city for something. Marina here clearly isn't here to work. At first, Marina wanted to walk past them, but she stopped. But the main issue isn't what you're here for. Do you even realize that you're common criminals? Aurora let go of Rodrigo's arm, who was listening to their conversation with interest. Watch your tongue. And why should I? You took all my money from my wallet and left me penniless in a strange city. I didn't even have enough for a ticket. And after all that, you're here trying to accuse me of something? Marina wanted to leave, but Aurora blocked her way. Marina could sense that Aurora had been drinking. No, wait. You should be responsible for your words. Marina understood that this could end very badly. Nora was also giving her a hostile look. And of course, the fact that the girls were with Rodrigo only complicated matters. Aurora, leave me alone, and you can keep my money. Just. Marina took a step to the side and immediately felt a push. She couldn't maintain her balance and fell hard to the ground. She felt sharp pain through her back. She saw Aurora rushing towards her, but Rodrigo caught her. Have you gone crazy? She's pregnant. Aurora struggled to break free from his grasp and yelled. I don't care. Let me teach her a lesson for her words. Nora managed to lead her friend away, and Rodrigo helped Marina to her feet. Let me walk you home. Marina looked at him angrily. I don't need anyone to escort me. Marina marched towards the house. Her back was throbbing and pulling. Rodrigo shouted after her. Don't worry, I didn't believe them either. But Marina didn't turn around. By the time she reached the house, things got worse. Her back was twisting, and there was a pulling sensation in her stomach. Marina burst into tears. Oh God, I hope nothing happens to the baby. Just 100 meters away from home, she ran into Olivia. Marina clenched her teeth and silently told herself not to engage, to just walk past. Olivia looked her up and down and put her hands on her hips. Look at her, people. She's been walking around, who knows where, not caring about her child. She got drunk and fell. Disgusting. Marina felt her vision darken. She just needed to keep going all the way home. There was only a little bit left. Just a little bit more, and then her grandmother would be there. But Olivia had no intention of backing down. She circled around Marina and stood in front of her once again. What? Ashamed to look? I told you, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's disgusting, I can't even look at her. Good people, just take a look. People, of course, willingly stopped, looked, and shook their heads. Marina felt the pain in her back intensify. She was already ready to close her eyes and collapse when she saw her grandmother running towards her from the house, tying a scarf on the go. Grandma! Lita immediately pushed Olivia aside and rushed towards Marina. Dear, what's wrong? Let's go home. Lean on me. Marina immediately felt better because her grandmother was by her side. She took a few steps, but then weakly dropped to the ground. I can't, Grandma, my legs won't hold me. What's wrong with you? Does it hurt? Yes, everything. My back hurts a lot. Olivia now looked at them in fear. Should we call an ambulance? People were approaching them. There were fewer smiles now. A woman sat down, looked at Marina. How long have you been in pain? I fell and immediately everything started hurting, Marina barely managed to say. The pain pierced her with such force that she screamed. Lita paled. An ambulance will take at least an hour to get here. And then another hour back. Look, there, the new owner of the farm is coming. He's clearly from the city. Stop him. On the way, indeed, a jeep was driving, and people in the village already knew about it. However, few had actually seen the businessman himself. Those who had seen him said that he was a very pleasant and polite man. The neighbors rushed to the car. The jeep abruptly stopped, and the driver jumped out, followed by the businessman himself. People eagerly explained to him what they needed. Finally, he nodded. The car approached Marina. She barely understood what was happening. Her grandmother brought a bag with her documents and got into the car next to her. The jeep quickly pulled away. Olivia silently watched them go. Marina didn't fall on her own. I saw Rodrigo push her with Aurora and Nora. That's how she got hurt. But it's not surprising at her stage. They might even end up in jail now. Olivia quickly turned to the person who was speaking. Watch your mouth, or you might end up with a sentence yourself. She lifted her skirts and ran towards the house. These events had escalated so quickly, and Grandma was not prepared for this. The news that Rodrigo and his friends had nearly injured the pregnant Marina quickly spread throughout the village. Rodrigo immediately heard that his father had come home. Rodrigo, for heaven's sake, come here. Rodrigo stepped out of the room and looked grimly at his father. Why are you yelling? Have you gone completely crazy with your grandmother? What? How dare you even ask? I'll give you a hard time right now. Quickly tell me everything. As if I didn't have enough trouble with a son like you, now I might lose my job because of your grandmother's actions. Marina heard a familiar voice. She couldn't quite figure out who it was, but the voice stirred up a storm of emotions within her. Finally, she managed to open her eyes. The man in the front seat was speaking on the phone. Yes, number 333, a black BMW. All right, we'll see you, wink. Apparently, he was explaining to the ambulance driver how to find them. The man turned to the driver. Sancho, fast but careful, understood. Yes, I understand, Manrique. Marina opened her eyes wider. No, this just couldn't be. Manrique, please don't take my child away. The man turned sharply towards her. Marina? Marina, is that you? We were searching for you frantically. Marina started crying. Stop the car. I won't give you my baby. Lita looked at Manrique and then at her granddaughter in surprise. Marina, is this the baby's father? No, Grandma, he's the grandfather. Manrique turned to them. What nonsense are you talking about? No one is trying to take the baby away from you. Goodness, what a mess. Sancho started slowing down. Manrique, the ambulance. The man got out of the car as soon as it stopped. He quickly approached the doctor. Take us to a private hospital. The doctor looked at him in surprise. Who will meet us there? They will, I will come with you. The ambulance, with its sirens blaring, sped ahead, while Manrique's car followed closely. He dialed his son's number. Hello, Dad. David, hi. Why does your voice sound sad? No, everything's fine. Where are you? David, I'm going to the maternity hospital. I think I will meet my grandson soon. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Dad, are you okay? I'm fine, Marina is giving birth. Or rather, something happened, and she's having problems. Come to the clinic. Manrique hung up, and they arrived at the clinic. Lita returned to the village in the evening. Neighbors peeked out from their yards, but no one dared ask how things were. It seemed like they hadn't done anything wrong, yet they felt dirty, as if they had attacked the girl, as if no one ever gave birth without a husband. And all this because Olivia stirred up trouble. They say the local policeman built houses for them. And they also say that these friends of hers have some unpleasant things ahead of them. Lita arrived in the same jeep she left in. Of course, this caused even more gossip in the village. But knowing Lita, everyone exchanged news only among themselves, and no one bothered Grandma Marina. In the evening, when it was already dark outside, there was a knock on the door. Lita went to open it and saw the local police officer standing on the doorstep. "Lita, can I come in?" he asked. "Sure, even though it's late for visits," Lita replied. "I'm not here for an official visit, The officer waved his hand and sat down at the table. "Andres, what happened?" Lita asked with interest. "Well, what should I say, Lita? I think I've come to apologize. On behalf of myself and the villagers," he said. Lita looked at him intently. "Oh, really? Well, wait, I'll make you some coffee." They sat facing each other. "How's Marina?" the officer asked. "Marina is fine, everything turned out okay. Manrique turned out to be a very good person. He sent her to an expensive hospital with good specialists." Lita didn't go into details. She had long learned not to say too much. People always twist things to their own liking. "I brought some money," the officer said. "Money? What money?" Lita asked. "Is it the money Nora and Aurora took from Marina? They should be punished for that. But Marina is too forgiving. She might forgive those foolish young girls." Lita shook her head. "Yes, Marina won't do anything to them. She's too soft. And you, Andres, should not be asking for such people." The officer stood up and looked at Lita. "And I wouldn't have gone if she hadn't clung to my Rodrigo like a burr. It seems like they're heading towards a wedding. I wish I hadn't seen that. And I've talked to Olivia already." "Thank you, Lita." 3 days passed before Olivia recovered from the shock and went out onto the street again. She had one goal in mind: to punish that family, especially Marina. Who did she think she was? And Rodrigo said he'd marry her even though she was pregnant. What a fool. His mother put him in his place. Let that be Aurora. She's not very smart, but at least she had the sense not to bring her disgrace home. And that silly, promiscuous girl. And Olivia had to listen to her? No, this couldn't go like this. She would arrange a meeting with Marina from the maternity ward that she would remember for a long time. First of all, Olivia decided to find out when Marina would arrive. There was no one to ask, so she headed to the store. They surely know everything there. The store was crowded, so she stood at the threshold and asked, "Well, what's the news in our village?" "What news?" "There's no news without you, Olivia," someone replied. The woman got angry. "Oh, how funny. Where would you all be if it wasn't for me? I'm the one opening your eyes." The people fell silent. "You seem to know something new, otherwise, you wouldn't talk like that," someone said. "And don't you know? Marina is being discharged soon. They say she gave birth to a little one with dark skin." The people in the store gasped. "With dark skin?" Olivia smirked. Half the battle was won. She had captured everyone's attention. "Where did you hear that, Olivia?" someone asked. "Where?" "From her friends. Have you forgotten how they talked about her? How she was with anyone and everyone, just like her mother." People exchanged glances. They had never seen anything like this in their village before. "Yeah, she's not like Marina, right?" "No, not like her. They're all not like her until they are. What's there to think about? She'll be discharged soon, she'll come, and we'll see everything for ourselves. It will be hilarious. Such a thing has never happened in our village. A disgrace among the disgraces. When will she be discharged? Probably tomorrow?" It turned out that Lita had been to the store recently, buying all sorts of goodies, and she mentioned that Marina would arrive tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And what's interesting is that it seems she won't come by herself, someone else will drive her. Oh Lord, nobody is even there to greet her. Olivia quickly turned to the shopkeeper. "So, what am I talking about? Her father has probably long since left and has no idea what's going on here. And she's still walking around with her head held high. Disgusting. She has disgraced the whole village. Well, Olivia, don't exaggerate it. What does it have to do with the village? Olivia quickly turned to the speaker and said, "What? Isn't it true? Have you often seen children like her in villages? Well, they will come to visit us on excursions. Are you sure it's exactly that child?" "Not sure. Who knows who she was hanging around with?" "Well, I'll go tomorrow at 3 to see. And you come too." Olivia dashed out of the store. The main thing was done. She gave people something to think about. The woman was sure that everyone, and maybe even more, would come to the Santos house to see Marina's disgrace. Look at them, they're all sticking their heads up. Disgusting. Actually, she thought, I should smear the gates with tar at night, like they used to do in the old days. But then she decided that she could also get a treat from her relative, the local police officer. And she decided to limit herself to a fiery speech when Marina arrived. She will make them pay for all their words. Lita looked out the window and raised her eyebrows. Manrique approached the window. Wow, are they all here to welcome Marina? Lita sighed. If only it were a warm welcome. Do you see that old lady over there? It seems like she brought everyone along. She just can't calm down because her grandson was chasing after Marina. She's trying to ruin Marina's life. What can she do? Oh, spread rumors, ruin the mood. You know, when Marina arrived, she couldn't even go outside for a long time. Then they said such terrible things about her here. Manrique smiled. I recognize the village. I'm also from a village. Like my grandmother used to say, a village is such a place. Someone spoils the air on one end, and on the other, they already know that someone stained their pants. Lita laughed. Oh my God. I never thought you would say something like that. You know, we say something similar, just in slightly different words. Manrique smiled. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Marina is not alone. What's going on with them? Lita looked at him questioningly. Well, how should I put it? At first, Marina cried, then she kicked my son out. By the way, good for him, he deserved a good thrashing. Then, it seems, she listened. In short, they're going together. Really? Yes. He called half an hour ago. Lita fell silent for a moment. How I wish Marina could finally find happiness in her life. Everything will be all right, just wait and see. And you will definitely like David. Lita smiled, then exclaimed. Oh, look, there's a car over there. They went out to the street, and there was already a decent crowd near the house. But Lita proudly walked past everyone and stopped by the sidewalk. Olivia said perplexedly, Who's with her? Who? Our new businessman who bought Pablo's farm. I wonder what he's doing here. Olivia squinted. It was so unexpected that it took her a few seconds to regain her composure. Actually, the businessman shouldn't be here, and he's here without a car. He's probably been in the house for a while. Well, she could think about it later. Right now, she needed to think about something else because 2 cars were approaching the house. Olivia even took a step back to reconsider what types of cars she saw. She took a step back and bumped into something. She turned around. There were people standing like a wall, the same people she brought here herself. Olivia, go ahead, let's go ahead. We might have to work for him again. Generally, I don't want him to ask what we're doing here. The main thing is that it's not clear what his connection is to all this. Olivia snorted. None at all. Goodness, he drove her to the hospital and came here like a polite person. He probably brought a gift too. People whispered among themselves. And it's true, indeed. Everyone started moving closer. They really wanted to see that dark-skinned baby. The car stopped. Everyone immediately recognized one of the cars. It was their businessman's car. But the second car was unfamiliar. Manrique's driver started unloading flowers and gifts from the car. People exchanged glances. Marina had settled in quite well. Lay down on the street just once, and here you go, so many gifts. Olivia smiled. Everything was going according to plan. People were like that. The main thing is to steer their thoughts in the right direction, and then it all goes smoothly. She squeezed closer to Lita. So, what? Aren't you ashamed to stand and smile in front of everyone? Lita looked at her with surprise. Why should I be ashamed? It's you who should be ashamed of your foul language. And what did I say that was untrue? You had a daughter and a granddaughter who were promiscuous. Look, Marina will probably end up throwing a baby on you and just wag her tail. She'll go gallivanting with men. What does she care? She has a grandmother but no husband. Go ahead, I don't want her. Manrique initially decided not to intervene in this conversation, but then couldn't resist. Let's go, Lita, it's time for you to meet your son-in-law. Olivia's mouth dropped open. With another son-in-law? At that moment, a young man stepped out of the first car. He bore a striking resemblance to their new businessman. The crowd whispered, "Son, that's his son. They say he has a lot of money." David looked around, surprised, and opened the back door of the car. A second later, he turned around, a mischievous smile playing on his face and a bundle in his arms. The blue satin blanket shimmered in the sunlight. Carefully, he transferred their son onto one arm and reached into the car. Marina emerged from the car. Lita rushed towards her and hugged her. Marina smiled and said, "Grandmother, meet David, Valerio's father." The crowd burst into murmurs. "But he's dark-skinned. What's going on? Where's Olivia?" Olivia, hoisting up her skirts, hurried back to her house, muttering, "Well, they're going to make a fuss about all of them." David gazed tenderly at Marina, then at their son. When Valerio's father called him, something stirred inside David's soul. Suddenly, he felt that he was no longer just a person. Now, he was a person responsible for his loved ones, Marina, their little one. He was confident that everything would be all right with the baby because he already felt a connection to him, even though he hadn't been born yet. At the hospital, they wouldn't let him see Marina. They said she was sleeping and no one could visit her right now. Valerio's father had already taken Marina's grandmother away, but David firmly decided that he wouldn't leave Marina and their son alone. They tried to send him home. Marina didn't want to talk to him either. But David wasn't the type to give up. A month later, the village was buzzing again. This time, the talk wasn't about Marina, but rather about the two friends she had once left the village with. The police had come from the city, accompanied by a local constable, and headed to Aurora's house. Naturally, within an hour, the whole village knew that Marina wasn't the only one who had been left with an empty wallet at that time. Now the village was abuzz with true gossip. The police also came to Marina. "You need to file a report too." Marina smiled and replied, "No, I won't do that. And besides, I'm grateful to the girls for what they did to me. If I hadn't been left alone in a strange city without any money, I wouldn't have met my new family. I wouldn't have had Valerio. Please pass my thank you to the girls." In the evening, Rodrigo passed on these words to Aurora and Nora. Aurora couldn't help but flinch. Who does she think she is, Mother Teresa? Just as naive as ever. Well, it doesn't matter. This will all be over soon, and you and I, Nora, will head back to the city. This time, we'll make it. Rodrigo looked at her in surprise. Aren't we supposed to get married? Aurora snorted. Yeah, who needs you? Your dad helped a bit, and that's it. She turned to Nora. So, what do you say? When are we leaving? Nora shook her head. You know what, Aurora? You can get mad all you want, but I won't be going anywhere with you. I don't need that kind of happiness, even if it's free. Maybe Marina is a fool, but at least she's in a good place now, and we. Forget it, friend. Nora spun around and headed toward the house. A second later, Rodrigo caught up with her and said, I'm with you. Aurora jumped up. Well, then get lost. You countryside hicks. Rot away here. You'll be spinning cowtails your whole life, but I wasn't born for that. She cursed out of powerlessness and then burst into tears. You'll remember me one day. You'll see what I become. But no one paid any attention to her anymore. Marina, maybe you could stay a bit longer. No, Grandma, I have to go. David's divorce is tomorrow, and I need to support him. Viola is in a very confrontational mood. Oh, I'm so worried. Don't be, Grandma. And actually, David asked me to talk to you. Talk? About what? Well, Grandma, you understand how much we will miss you with Valerio. I know you love the village, but maybe, just maybe, you will reconsider? Lita smiled. No, Marina, I'll stay here. I'll wait for you to visit. You know, you just don't know, but I'll be working for Manrique now, overseeing production. You know, it's nice to realize that you're not completely forgotten. Marina looked at her grandmother in surprise. So, her grandmother was 66. But how old was Manrique? Why was her grandmother blushing? Manrique was 63. They recently celebrated his birthday. In the evening, David embraced Marina and asked, Why are you so contemplative? Do you miss your grandmother? Oh no, not really. Well, tell me, Marina hesitated, unsure of how to articulate her thoughts. Yes, what is it? David waited for Marina to continue, but she was at a loss for words. Don't you think that your father and my grandmother have a little too warm of a relationship? Marina finally asked. David laughed. Marina, do you really think age is what matters? Remember how much older I am than you? Marina smiled and cuddled up to him. I don't remember, and I don't want to remember. Maybe you're right. There's no need to look for hidden pitfalls where people are happy. David looked at their sleeping son, who was tossing and turning in his crib, and at his wife, who was already peacefully asleep. Suddenly, he realized that happiness was not just a word. It was something immense that couldn't be contained in either the mind or the soul. He smiled, gently kissed Marina on the cheek, and settled on the pillow next to her. Let everyone around them be happy, because it's wonderful,